Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for Thursday night football. We have the Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers. It's going to be a fun game to break down. Before we get into it, I am your host, Tyler Weeman, at FlatTyler83 on your DFS sites and your Twitter. And as always, this is presented by LineStar. Please come join us. $39.99 per month gets you access to all we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all for one low price. Now, let's dig into it and see what we can drum up on this beautiful Thursday night football slate for Week 16. Just wild that it's already Week 16. We are here. All right, so 42-point game total. As always, we're going to go position by position, breaking it all down. Now, we got Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. It is wild, the similarities between these two quarterbacks. Both went to Oregon. Both have been extremely good this season and in their careers in the NFL. Justin Herbert has been one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Bo Nix is having just an amazing rookie year. Both these guys, very similar stats on the season. And in tough matchups, both defenses have been very solid all season long. If we look at quarterback matchups, Bo Nix does have the easier matchup on the season. Chargers 21st versus QB, where Broncos are 9th. But if you look, last 10 games, Chargers are 18th, Denver is 14th, and then last 5, Denver 17th versus quarterback and Chargers 10th. So both guys are in a little bit of a situation where it is a tough one to get going, but both guys have some rushing upside. Bo Nix has a slightly more rushing upside, but I like both of them, and with them being similar price, similar ownership, similar projections, all of that, you're really just choosing a guy based on the narrative your lineup is telling. So once again, it's a reminder to tell a little bit of a story with your lineup. Predict how the game is going to go with your lineups. That's the best bet as far as how to win one of these tournaments here. So I like both guys. I favor Bo Nix slightly, but ever so slightly. It's really not a big, huge difference. Now, getting to the running back spot, there is some stuff we got to talk about here. So Jaleel McLaughlin, to start it off with. He did not practice on Monday. He is questionable. And then he was limited in practice Tuesday. We have not yet had the Wednesday practice report, so we're still waiting for those. But he is going to be questionable coming into the game. If he is out, Javonte Williams will get more snaps. Audric Estime will get more snaps. Both become interesting. Lately, Estime, McLaughlin have both been splitting like 50% of the work, both getting around 25%, whereas Javonte Williams getting like 50%. So if McLaughlin is out, I think most likely Javonte goes to maybe 60% of the snaps and Estime goes up to like 40%. So in that situation, one of those Broncos running backs does become much more interesting. On the Chargers side, what we got to talk about here is the fact that Kamini Vidal played way more snaps than Gus Edwards. He was around 65% of the snap share to Edwards like 25%. Now, Edwards is not a pass-catching back and is not on the field very much in passing situations. And it was a game where they did lose 17-40 to Tampa Bay. So there is a chance that that switch was just due to Vidal being the better back in pass-catching situations. But we've also seen Gus Edwards just being dust. I mean, 8 carries for 23 yards, 10 for 36, 6 for 32 is okay, but 9 for 11, 6 for 27, 10 for 55, 6 for 19, 3 for 9, 18 for 59, 11 for 26. He has just not been efficient whatsoever with his touches this year. And I think there is a little bit of a chance that Vidal could be passing him in in playing time here for a good reason. I do think that, if they're in a purely run game type script, that Gus Edwards likely gets a little bit more touches. But if it is a close game and they're mixing it up and they're passing and running and all that, there is a chance Vidal is matching Edwards' snap counts or outpacing Edwards. So it's something to consider. I mean, at 6,800, there is a path where there is a chance you're getting the RB1. So it is one thing to consider. However, understand the full ramifications and full situation in the fact that it could have just been game script. So, if you are going to take Vidal over Edwards, just realize there's a chance that he's not out there that much because it was just a game script situation. Now, as far as the running back spot, both running backs are in tough spots. So on the season, Chargers have been 8th versus running back 1, Denver 3rd versus running back 1. Over the last 10, Denver's 15th versus RB1 and Chargers 13th. So round average, a little bit better than average lately. It won't be easy for anybody in this ground game, and both ground games have been pretty bad all year long. Now, let's get over to wide receiver and try to break down that situation a little bit more. Now, the only two position players outside of the quarterbacks that are pretty much guaranteed to get some work is Courtland Sutton and Ladd McConkey. Both these guys have been studs this year. Both look great, and I want both of them. Outside of these two guys, it is a total toss-up who gets work done. McConkey, Palmer, and Johnston pretty much run all of the routes for the Chargers. All three of them are on the field a lot. Nobody else really gets much work. So those are the guys you're really picking from. Quentin Johnston leads the team with red zone targets, and he keeps getting in the end zone. He has 8 touchdowns, but he is pretty boom or bust, and outside of getting the touchdowns, he only has one game over 51 yards. Yeah. So he has one game of 51 and then one game of 118. Outside of those two games, he's only really going to be optimal if he gets in the end zone. And he also has that fact that he drops a ton of passes and just isn't that great of a wide receiver. So I think Johnston is interesting. There is absolutely touchdown upside and should be used accordingly. And then there's Josh Palmer, who everybody thought would be the wide receiver 1 coming into this year and really handling the workload. But so far, he only has 1 touchdown and 502 yards on the season. Not great, and really hard to count on him to get it done. I think the clear, obvious best play for the Chargers is Ladd McConkey. Now, on the Broncos side, you got Courtland Sutton, who is just an absolute dog and has been a beast all season long. 878 yards, 6 touchdowns. He is on pace for another 1,000-yard receiving season. Clear number 1 target for the Broncos. And he's in a decent spot. Chargers, have just been okay versus wide receivers. Specifically wide receiver 1s. Wide receiver 1s have actually beat up the Chargers a little bit lately. And I want to show you this. Last week, Mike Evans, 9 receptions, 159 and 2. DeAndre Hopkins, 4 receptions for 32 and touchdowns. Now, DeAndre isn't like a true stud or number 1 wide receiver right now with the Chiefs because they've still been bringing him along very slowly and he hasn't been playing a ton of snaps, but decent game for limited snaps. Drake London, 9 for 86. Zay Flowers, 5 for 62. Then you have Jamar Chase for 775 and 2. So they have given up 5 touchdowns to the wide receiver 1 over the last 5 weeks. I think Sutton is in a great spot, and I'm very interested in playing him. On the Chargers side, Jerry Jeudy just got 235 yards versus the Broncos. So they have also been giving it up to the wide receiver 1s. Those two guys, clearly the best plays on this slate from a position player standpoint. So that is outside of the two quarterbacks. Now, if we dig into the Broncos side, Devon Vele is the number 2 wide receiver still. He is outpacing Troy Franklin in snaps and targets, but not by a ton. He's getting 60% of the work. Franklin's around 45-ish. I am interested in Vele. He is one of the only guys you can really count on from this wide receiver core to be on the field. But really, it's after Sutton, Vele, Mims, Humphrey, Franklin are all being mixed into the bunch. I would have to say that Franklin, of them all, would be my favorite just because he does have big play upside. And Franklin and Nix both went to Oregon, so they have that, locker room narrative going back to college and having some fun together. They're comfortable with each other and can definitely get it done. So, of those guys, Franklin's my favorite. Vele, while he's on the field a lot, he's kind of just a, glorified slot receiver. Hasn't got in the end, or has got 1 touchdown, only 377 yards. For him to really get up there yardage-wise, he needs a ton of catches, and that's just not something that's very likely. So for DFS purposes, even though he's out there a ton, I don't love him, and I would rather go to a big play ability like Franklin or Mims or Humphrey. And frankly, Franklin at 3K is too cheap when he is the wide receiver 3, but kind of plays the 2 role sometimes as well. So very interesting spot as far as these wide receiver situations. Then we get over to tight end. Tight end really isn't used by the Broncos much. Troutman gets a couple touchdowns. If he doesn't get in the end zone, he's not going to be optimal. Kroll, same thing. Couple targets every single week, but if he doesn't get in the end zone, he's not going to be optimal. And then Nate Atkins just is another guy, touchdown or bust. So all 3 Broncos tight ends can be used, can get targets, but all 3 of them are just touchdown or bust. That's the only way you're playing them. On the Charger side, Stone Smart played last week for Will Dissly and is expected to do it again this week. He had 6 targets, 5 receptions for 50 yards. He was on the field almost 70%. He is your pass catcher for the Chargers from the tight end position that you can trust. There is some upside, even if he doesn't score a touchdown, just because, how many targets and yards he's been able to get the last 2 weeks, spelling Dissly. So a little interested in Stone Smart. Now, getting over to the defensive positions. We got Broncos, we got Chargers. Both Ds have been very, very solid all year long and have some serious playmakers. I am fine with either one of these guys. Now, both offenses haven't really been able to run the ball, so there could be a little bit more emphasis on passing, which makes, the defenses a little bit more interesting. Also, if the defenses are able to get after the quarterback, both the quarterbacks can run in this situation. So I think everything here is interesting, and you really, really, really need to make your lineups based on some sort of storyline here. Defense-wise, I like them both. Broncos, I would say, is a little better defense, but all in all, I think you could use either one of these guys. The one thing I will point out is the Chargers are at home. But a home game for the Chargers isn't really like a home game. If you look, their best games have actually been away this year on defense and not at home. It's an interesting thing I realized, but it's a pretty small sample size as well, so I wouldn't go all into that. Denver Bronco wise, they have been better, much better at home on defense than away outside of this Saints game. All of their big games have been at home. So you can do with that information what you will. And then when it comes down to kicker, we got Dicker the kicker and Will Lutz. Both guys been solid for the year. don't mind either one of them. Since both defenses are solid, there is a high likelihood that coming into the red zone or on the opponent's side of the field, the offenses could slow, meaning more field goal opportunities. On the year, Dicker's averaging 9.8, Willett's 9.6. So it is totally just a storyline type situation if you want to use either of the kickers. I think both should be considered. Both have some upside. The only thing is it's a 42-point total, so Vegas is saying less scoring. Now, sometimes that just means because it's more field goals, and that both offenses are able to move the ball a little bit, but slow down when it comes to the red zone. So that'll do it for us today, guys. Good luck. It's an interesting one. It's going to be a very fun football game to watch. You know, two solid teams clashing, trying to make the playoffs. I will be back with more DFS content later this week. You guys have a good one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.